Hey golfers, I'm Drew Mahowald of Second Swing Golf here in the tour van at Second Swing Minnetonka, joined by Master Club Fitter Tyler Fitzel for a head-to-head shaft comparison today. We've got a new one here that's relatively fresh to the market here, and then another, I guess the White Board has been out for a while and been winning tournaments for players, but Diamana Blue Board, Diamana White Board. So Tyler, talk to me about what you've seen from the White Board, what you think we're going to see from the Blue Board, maybe the differences between the two in terms of how they're built and the tech involved.
Well, you look back at Mitsubishi Chemical, they've been making a lot of really good golf shafts for quite a while, and that's evident in the fact that if you have been golfing for a while, you've noticed the Diamana name on shafts. It's been very popular, been around for 20, maybe plus years. So they've been at every level of the golf game. You can see them in just about every club. So I'm not sure about putters, but I know that you can pretty much find the ability to get these shafts. We're talking about the newest in terms of the driver shaft. These both are, call it the remake, if you will, or reintroduction to, been some of the most popular brands out there. You'll notice with the Blue Board was maybe a little higher launching or softer profile. Not that you couldn't get something that handles some extreme club speed with it as well. I'd say the last generation of this, they also had a red board.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit more of a higher launching. The blue tended to be a little bit more mid launching. The white tended to be a little bit more of a low launch and spin combination to that. So we see these at pretty much every level on the tour. The Blue Board has just been reintroduced, re-engineered, if you will. There's some new tech involved with the way that they're putting the fibers together, with the types of glues and resins they're using to keep that together without adding too much of the weight where they want to put it.
That's kind of where that X-Link tech comes into play as well, with the resin built in there. So in the past, the White Board has been, I think, a pretty firm, lower launching, kind of designed to keep that ball down for players. And then, as you mentioned, the Blue Board is going to be mid to maybe even high, depending. I mean, higher, at least it should be higher than the White Board. So there's the differences in profiles there. And then, as I start to swing, I'll try to get some feedback on the feel too of how these things and where the club head is and where it's not. But it's a shaft comparison today, a little bit different than most times with club heads for us. But I think as we've noticed throughout the years, our viewers love to talk golf shafts, and then B, the golf shaft matters quite a bit into the golf club.
It does, and one of the things that the shaft presents is feedback. It's a huge feedback mechanism. You can maybe feel where the club head is or isn't. As if something gets too stiff, you don't feel where that club is, or vice versa. You can feel really heavy, like the club head almost feels heavy, and you can kind of feel it moving around. Maybe creates, some people would call that, a little too much flex or whippy. And those are all important aspects to look at, because connecting your hands to the club head is that shaft. And it is an integral part of the process of finding optimal numbers. And it's not just in a driver. This happens to be a driver shaft, a wood shaft. But we see this in all the shafts in general too.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we've got a Titleist GT2 driver that we are going to, we're going to set up with both shafts. We're going to test both head-to-head with TrackMan, see what the numbers present us, and get some insight here from Tyler. So ready to do this here?
Let's go.
All right.
Good. Really good.
That's a feeling. First swing feels pretty good. Definitely can. It's because I'm playing. In my driver, I've got the 1K black, or excuse me, not the 1K black. The Ping Tour black is my driver shaft, 65X. So this is going to be. It feels a little bit more flexible than that, at least on one swing anyway. It's a slight miss hit high on the face, but it seems like it's totally fine. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, actually the numbers are pretty good. I mean, I know the smash wasn't the best, but
I mean, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, still carries 280, goes 300 yards.
Yeah.
I could tell it was a little high in the face.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about this before. Would love to see a little bit more launch
Right.
out of your game, out of your swing a little bit.
Yes, which I know we have had plenty of conversations about this and how I'm using the 10-degree head right now. It's not what I use on the golf course, but these are some pretty good numbers. Kind of a similar strike, a little bit high on the face again, but those 3 swings are very, very similar to at least the shot paths. In terms of with my swing speed and where, what these numbers look like, is that launch angle at about 14 kind of in a good window there?
Yeah, we hear quite often, you'll hear someone say, I want about 15 degrees of launch and 2,500 RPMs of spin. That's nice if that's where your swing is.
Right.
If that's where the loft of the club is, the hit location, if that's a path, that's a face angle issue. Like, when we start talking about what we'd like to get, there's a big difference between what we get and what we'd like.
Right, because you're not saying like, oh my gosh, 15 degrees is what everybody should be at.
Right.
It's kind of.
And so, like, if you take that as an example to the optimizer,
okay, interesting.
We have really super good numbers, even though it was, maybe a couple miles an hour off in terms of ball speed. You can get some more ball speed off of that. That's hit location.
Yeah.
But you're on the higher side of the launch, the lower side of spin. So you get carry, you get a little bit. It's a really nice.
Kind of mix up for those yards they might be missing by hitting it a little off center.
Yep.
Okay. Another miss. You might come back to center though, because it's off the toe.
Yeah, not a bad miss, right?
These misses are good. I don't know. How much would you say, is there any forgiveness that can be, like, can a shaft be forgiving in a player or in a club?
Yeah, it can. And right, so the shaft isn't going to, like, if you have the face open, the shaft is not going to be able to close the face.
Right.
But overall, the actual bending of the shaft in the swing can actually, it can kind of drop the head, maybe close the face.
Okay.
So when you see something that is maybe a little bit more off to the right, it tends to be a little stiffer. It's maybe not quite allowing the club to move quite as fast past the zero line.
Maybe like a resistance to the twist.
Yeah, and
a little bit.
Another piece of that too ends up becoming torque.
Yeah.
Right. Torque is a very interesting word because it's not something that we can measure specifically for like what it does as much as what we see it ends up being a more feel aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So a number that's a much lower torque, so you say it's like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Something around 1 is very stiff. There's the very little twisting. It's extremely solid. But you get into a 4 or a 5 torque rating, and there's a bit more play in the shaft. So that might feel whippier, even though you could have an extra stiff that's got a higher torque rating.
Yeah.
Generally, they don't, because that's one of the things that stiffens them up.
Yeah,
is
right,
kind of that
exactly.
twisting motion.
Yeah, I asked because I've hit a couple of these swings here that are not great contact, but they're still flying really nicely and putting me in a good spot. So that one I hit a lot better. Might turn a little bit over to the left. Yeah, still very good.
Well, so you say that in terms of the shaft. We talk a little bit about forgiveness. One of the aspects about the differences amongst certain manufacturers becomes the feel aspect. Now, I talked about it as a feedback.
Yeah.
This should feel a little bit more smooth than when we get into the whiteboard.
Yeah, and I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, it already feels a little smoother compared to, I play the Ping Tour Black in my current driver. So the G430 10K. So, that's pretty stout profile. So I can feel a little bit of this one. I feel like I have a good understanding of where the club head is, and I can feel a little bit of the flex happening. I'm curious though, when we get to the whiteboard, if that changes at all. Ooh, that club face was wide open.
Yeah, you typically have an inside-out path, and it was, and the face and path were pretty much the same number.
I guess I based on that spin, I wonder if it must have been heel too. Maybe it picked it up, maybe it didn't. It did not. a lot of spin though.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get one more here maybe. Oh, don't turn over too much, and that's going to be really good. Yeah, I did a little bit.
Right. We have this in A1 setting or standard setting.
Yeah.
So some of the other things that go along with it, right? When we talk about this in a fitting sense, I'd be using this shaft if we're interested in something like this, but I'd also probably be using this shaft as more of an end result to see, okay, if I have more adjustability, do I make it a little bit more open? Do I add it off? Do I take it away? You have a tendency to come a little bit inside out on the path, which turns it over. So for that, is this shaft turning it over even more? And that's one of the things with the deflection that a shaft can create. Is it might rotate. It's one of the mysteries to this too. Is like even in the testing, the best way to do shaft testing is with live subject. It's with real swings. Yeah. And because this is the only way that you're going to get a true comparison. What did you feel? Right. What did we see? Right. Now, if I swing, as an example, if I get in and I swing that club with both of these shafts, right, I'm going to see differences between the two shafts. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why even in our fitting processes, it's so important to come in and get fit, even for a shaft. You want to be able to look at some of the noticeable differences amongst them, being able to compare them.
Yeah, not only just in the feel, but also, we can get to the numbers here too, at least for the blue board. But I'm looking at them, and it's been, I was surprised by the forgiveness that I was experiencing, and that could also be, again, that's the GT2 head is obviously very good as well, but I didn't hit the ball solid on more than 2 of those swings, and to see the ball go as far as it did, it was very impressive. I had the one spinny one out to the right that I hit off the heel, but in terms of the overall, you got to launch at 13. Do you think it goes down with the whiteboard after a good sample?
Yeah, I think it does. The blue board is always been considered kind of a more I say low to mid launch. Yeah. I don't want to call it like a mid where it's the white's going to be low, the blue's going to be mid, and something else might be higher. In the long process of shafts, you might find something for a certain type of swing where the higher launching type shaft actually launches lower.
Yeah, just based on a player's swing dynamics.
Yeah, that's why it's also important is to come in and get fit, because when we start talking about this Diamana Blue Board has been one of the stalwarts on every tour level type driver game, fairways. We see them in hybrids. It's been used by almost every single manufacturer I can think of as one of their stock offerings. So the same is true as we start looking at the comparison amongst other shafts in their lineup. And I think with the blue board, you're I'd say servicing a much larger portion of the golf population. Yeah. Whereas you may not need something that's super high, and you may not need something that's super low. That we fit. You think about the average. Well, the average is something super low, super high, and everything in between.
It's kind of the bell of the bell curve,
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so I think that would be probably the whiteboard might be a little bit lower launching to that. But
well, let's find it. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
Ooh. Yep. Actually, higher spinning than it felt, but
could have been.
I should say felt. It felt like really good contact, and the spin is just higher than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, it could have been hit location.
Could have been. Maybe a tad low on the face, based on it's a little bit lower launch. I'm still up there in spin. So. Yeah, it just feels like it just does not feel like the shaft is even flexing at all. It's like it just feels like a telephone pole, really.
Yeah, when we start talking about what they're doing between shafts, they're utilizing different materials. To put it kind of in the simplest terms, a graphite shaft has a lot of graphite in it, right? So they're filaments, they're fibers, they're woven together, then they're wrapped. The way that they have other materials in certain places that are very high end. The materials we talk about might have elements like compounds that we don't normally think of in our everyday products, but you get some certain metals that they use, and the metals are very expensive. They might be rare metals. They're talking about different types of resins, like X-Link technology is one where they're trying to get less glue, if you will, or resin, and more product into the shaft, which allows for a better product in overall.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so you talk about the materials they're using, they talk about like pitch ton, where they're talking about literally the numbers of fibers and the weight of the fibers and the strength of the graphite that they're putting in.
Yeah, it's because clearly it's just it's a little more sturdy, I guess. And I don't know in terms of the tech if it's more fibers, if it's tighter fibers, how they work that. But in a sense, I like it because I feel like a little bit more I can swing freely with this type of shaft. Ooh, there's a little bit of a snap hook. Didn't feel too much like that when I swung.
Yeah, the path was the same. The face just got a little bit more closed.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yep. Actually was closed. Slightly towards the toe with the contact there, but it might work.
It's one of the longest carries, one of the longest totals so far.
Yeah, which is odd because again, I mean, it's not a 150 smash. It's up there, but.
One of the things about the whiteboard, as we're talking about the differences between Diamana's brand new blue board reimagining versus the whiteboard, there's a little bit more strength in the handle section of the whiteboard, right? When you get a little bit more of that as shaft flex works, it actually starts in the handle as you pull on that club back down towards the ball. So as you're moving that club, you actually may have the shaft is moving differently based on the way that you pull. Well, if you're pulling and there's a little bit softer, that overall that shaft might say kick different. It'll feel different. It might feel softer that way versus something that is stiffer in the handle like this.
Yeah.
Because there's the two longest and straightest distances of the day.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the blue board wasn't a good shaft.
Yeah.
It might mean that the whiteboard is just better suited to your transition.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, I think we need one more here, or we got a couple more yet. We got to get in terms of matching up the numbers, but. I think that one felt really good. Yeah, 149. That's not surprised me. Interesting that it is a little bit. That one was kind of one of the lower ones of the session here, I think. I guess that was a little bit steeper attack angle or a lower attack angle number than the other ones. That one's going to be a hook too. Face was closed. Yeah.
Okay.
Those two are so similar, those hooks. But
yeah, let's take that off for a second and just kind of take a look. One of the things we talked about is, hey, were we going to see a less launch? And overall, the average is a little bit less launch.
Sure.
So let's look at it from a couple different perspectives. The first is the average launch angle was 11.5 versus 13.1.
Yeah.
The standard deviation to that was plus or minus 2 degrees versus plus or minus 1.9 degrees. So the same sort of standard deviation is applying.
Yeah.
Meaning you're swinging the clubs almost identical.
Yeah.
But the equipment in your hand is a little different. We've seen this, especially when we do shaft comparisons, is one of the things about spin that gets a little different. We don't probably see a whole lot of difference between spin. When you move the club a little bit faster, the ball speed becomes more of a distance difference, and the launch angle becomes, generally speaking, the spin is usually something that remains more consistent.
Sure.
Right? So we expect the blue board to launch a little higher. It did. We expect it to kind of feel a little softer, and in your opinion, it was.
Yep.
You can also take a look at, in terms of the average, as we look at this, you've got 281 as a carry distance versus 282. So we say, well, is that what I want? 308 versus 306. So we're talking about a few yards on average. Now where we look at it, because remember how we talk about every hit has 4 aspects of the golf ball: ball speed, launch, spin, and direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if we're looking at ball speed, similar. It's a few miles an hour apart.
Yep.
We look at launch angle, a couple of degrees. Spin's the same. What about direction?
See, and that's where, looking at it, I like the best 5 from the whiteboard, but then those 2 misses are the big deal here, where my misses with the blue board seemingly were a little bit better, and I actually hit the ball. I think I hit the ball more in the center with the whiteboard for the most part. I just had the face closed on a couple of those, and then I was hitting it not as good with the blue board, but I actually like where those shots ended up a little bit better in that the misses were just much more in play, it seems like.
Well, and even by taking this off here and going with our, we call it the high 5 maybe, to get more into the nuts and bolts of the actual differences between them, I'd maybe looking at it from that perspective, I might take that one off. It has a little bit lower ball speed to that too.
Oh yeah, I guess, interesting. I had that draw tendency.
Right, and again, with this, what are we seeing out of it? Well, the blue board, if it is a little softer, and it does maybe deflect a little bit more, is moving that a little bit more left. For someone that has an inside-out path, does that close the face?
Does it?
Does it help influence the face rotation? Yeah, a little. It does.
Okay.
Because the whiteboard was not doing that as much. And you can notice is like those were a little bit straighter overall.
Right.
So even if I look at this from this perspective here.
Yeah, a lot that at the apex, a lot more moving left with the blue board there.
So
it's kind of confusing because the blue lines are actually the whiteboard.
Yeah.
But interesting. So okay. Now this is just for my swing tendencies, and it's obviously going to be different for anybody else that would come test these. But I think it shows a few things and it relates to the difference between them. Because again, I was very surprised by the forgiveness of just this setup with the shots that I hit, at least with the blue board. The GT2 head and the blue board shaft, a lot better performance on those than maybe they deserve based on where I hit them on the face. And then the whiteboard was just, it was so stout. I couldn't feel the head as much, or at least it felt like the shaft wasn't moving. But in a way, like I mentioned, it seemed like I could almost swing a little freer. Maybe I swung faster if you look at club speed. Maybe I did because I know the ball speed was higher. I guess that's. Is there any other big differences that you see?
I think when we start talking about shafts, one of the differences that we're going to find, in a fitting, I'm not going to see a tremendous amount of difference. You can even look at the stats here between 5 and 5. So if I don't have the picture up here, so let's say I just have this.
Yeah, they look very close, don't they?
Ball speed's 1 mile an hour different. Launch is the same. Spin's very, very similar. Carry distance similar. Total similar. Height's a little higher with the whiteboard. Interesting. Is that because the club's moving a little bit? The blue board was maybe inside out.
Yeah, turning the face a little bit.
The face was a little bit more closed. Does that mean that rotation or that torque in terms of face angle?
True. Yeah.
So as I'm looking up and down the stats, you'll notice that they all pretty much are in the same number either way. But that's why one of the things we talk about with getting in and testing some of these things is because the feel aspect is really what's going to hit you.
Yeah.
You're going to feel something, and that feel is really important. Now, also, you're going to get outside, and we want to see how that performs. Maybe we do have a little too much launch. Maybe we have a little too much upright. We need to flatten it. I need to lower it. Like, those are all some of the other things that we kind of dig in on those. But what I like is you've taken, we've had these, I call it a classic shaft that has been around for a long time. They're well established. They're recognizable, and brought it back. Call it the modern classic now. But when you're updating it with some of the technologies that that industries and engineers are looking with, creating kind of that that new era blue board. It's good to see the blue board back.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's going to fit really well into a lot of clubs. I expect it to be a real contender for a lot of things. You look at a company like Mitsubishi Chemical, and they already have some phenomenal shafts in their lineups between Tensai, as an example, which has a multitude of launch and spin characteristics and counterbalances and things like that as well.
Yeah, they did really well. And I know they're a big-time presence in the fitting matrix here with Second Swing. So without any further thoughts, I mean, golfers, come get fit. Like, this is just a tiny fragment of what you would experience in a fitting a Second Swing with someone like Tyler. So Tyler, thanks for joining and diving into the insights with me. Again, make sure your entire driver is fit for your game. That includes the shaft. We saw some big differences today with the GT2 head. So thanks again, Tyler. This was a great one.
Yeah, great.